Why do growing businesses love working in Slack? Let's ask Christy at Ari Bikes.
Running things in Slack saves me so much time.
AI summaries save 97 minutes per week. What say you, Rox from Gosney?
Slack helps us build community, it helps us build connection.
Your partners, vendors and customers all in one place. Take us on home, Ashley from Caraway.
If we didn't have Slack tomorrow, I would explode.
Well, let's not let that happen. Visit slack.com/podcast to get 50% off Slack Business Plus.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just
speaking into the void?
But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Don't chew on that, Max.
Cooper loves that chew, too.
Oh, now he's into Cooper's food. Wow, he is loving it. What do you feed Cooper?
Blue Buffalo Life Protection Formula. He never leaves a crumb. I love it because it's made with high-quality protein, nutrient-rich fruits and veggies, and wholesome whole grains.
Looks like we're switching to Blue.
Blue Buffalo foods are made with the superior ingredients your dog needs to thrive. Can your dog food say that? Visit feedbluefood.com to learn more.
Año nuevo, los mismos Extra Value Meals en McDonald's. Ahora te puedes llevar 2 snack wraps y papitas y una bebida mediana por solo $8. Solo por tiempo limitado. Precios y participación pueden variar. Los precios pueden ser más altos en Hawaii, Alaska y California y con entrega.
This episode is brought to you by Stouffer's. Here comes 3-time juggling champion Natalia Rogers. She's juggling law school, her TA job. Oh, narrowly catches the laundry. What's that 4th ball? Parents unexpectedly showed up at dinner time? Is that too much for Natalia? Not with Stouffer's Chicken Alfredo and its mouth-watering mix of Asiago, Romano, and Parmesan. When you're juggling 4 things at once and the clock strikes dinner, think Stouffer's.
Well, the Eagles' offense did it again, performing a complete disappearing act in the second half of a football game as the Eagles blow a lead and blow the season. They lose 23-19 to the 49ers practice squad defense. And we're going to break it down, lament the end of this season, I guess. I'm your host, Shane Haff. You can give me a follow on Twitter at ShaneHaffNFL, joined by a special guest, first time co-host on the show here. It is Wannabe, not on Twitter, but you can find him on Blue Sky and on Reddit. I'll let him shout out what the links are for those when we get there. But welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Go Birds. I'm okay. How are you?
This game feels a lot like, honestly, every game this season. I legitimately can't think. I've talked about this during the season, but legitimately, this is one of the least enjoyable Eagles seasons I've ever watched. There just were not games that I enjoyed the process of watching. The Vikings game and the Raiders game are probably about it. Everything else, it was just a struggle watching this team. And I mean, it ends in pretty predictable fashion. I said on the preview stuff that we did on the network this week that my fear is just that the moment the Eagles offense has to score 21 or more points, it's over. And that's exactly what played out in this game. And it's just a complete disaster. To have an offense this talented and you're facing the most banged up, worst defense in the playoffs, and this is what comes out. So I know you're more of a defense guy, so let's talk about the Eagles defense first, and then we can flip back to the offense. So again, you guys go check out Wannabe's work on Reddit and Blue Sky, and he'll shout those out later as well. But he's a Fangio guy, got a lot of defensive acumen here. What were your thoughts initially just watching the defense play out in this one?
Well, clearly the defense was more talented than the offense. It didn't always feel like it, but it felt like when we were making plays, it was either because Vic finally decided to dial up some pressure, or we simply were the better team. We had more talent out there. It's hard to tell without the All-22 from the Fox broadcast. You don't see a lot of the back seven, I've noticed, over the past year. But it did feel like Vic was in a fair amount of single high, a fair amount of three match. And unfortunately, Shanahan, it seemed like he outplay called him a little bit. One of the things I worried about all week long was if you have a running back, maybe he's not as explosive as he was a couple years ago, but he's a running back who is a dangerous route runner and caught 100 passes. you can't just play your normal 3-match rules. You gotta, especially with the lack of weapons they have at wide receiver, throw a bracket on CMC with the safety and the Kobe. You know what I mean? If you need Bond to be, over towards trips, handle CMC on the backside that way. If you just do your normal 3-match rules, like in a normal way, with 3-match, you could either have the linebacker take the running back out fast to the flats if he's out fast on a route, or if you're concerned by game plan, maybe the running back's one of their higher weapons, you could have the safety roll down post snap and take that running back to the flaps. The concern I have with having the safety do that in this game, and it does seem like that's what Vic did often, is that you have this safety coming down from 15 yards away, and you got this ultra shifty route runner who can just put on a double move. I could be wrong, but that might be what happened on that trick play. That might be part of the reason why they scored a touchdown on that trick play. I'm not sure. But he did make a couple other catches as well against that roll down coverage from the safety. So, I just wasn't, I was a little underwhelmed. They have weaknesses at CB2 that they didn't have last year. They have a little bit of a weakness in coverage right now with Epps that they, without Makuba there. Mid-season, I'd say after the Vikings game, Makuba finally stopped freelancing. Somebody finally got through to that young man. And for 3 games, it was boring. You didn't hear his name, but guess what? Nobody was open. So we have some coverage deficits out there, and then you have Nakobe Dean, on a guy who caught 100 balls. I feel like Vic had to come with a little bit more, to the table than he did in this game. Maybe I'm rushing to judgment because I'm a little bitter. The season's over and I'm a fan, and I haven't seen the All-22 yet. So I am making some assumptions based off what I saw on the broadcast. But I do think that the Vic got out game planned in this game slightly. We'll see how I feel after I watch the All-22. Cooper DeJean seemed to have a bust. I'm not sure. His feet got stuck in sand a little bit on the one long throw.
Is that the end breaker that you're talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, that was an end breaker. I should have rewatched the highlight after the game. But
that was one where he gets out leveraged and that gives up the first down, and then Blankenship misses the tackle too, and it turns it into an explosive play.
Yeah. It seemed almost at one point it almost looked like they were in a 2-high coverage pre-snap. So I'm not sure. I got to see that one. It definitely turned into 1-high post-snap. It looked like 3-match post-snap. I wonder if DeJean got confused and busted there because, he let that in-breaker go a little bit too easily, I thought. I'm going to have to rewatch that. One of the things about being in single-high 3-match coverage against his team, CMC, Christian McCaffrey, he makes that challenging. So does Kittle. And because of the coverage threats that they present. And one of the things I felt during the week was if they get into a trips formation, check from your single high coverage 3-match to a 2-high coverage. It might be that's what they were in. Maybe they called, single high 3-match. They were temporarily in trips, and then there was a motion out, and maybe for some reason DeJean's head was stuck into thinking that he's still in a 2-high coverage. This is just a wild guess. I don't know, but that looked like a bad play by DeJean. But you know what? He's been a hell of a player. We're lucky to have him. All pro, deserved it. I'm not putting this game on him. Quinion, same situation. I don't think there was a bust with Quinion. His feet and head just temporarily got stuck in quicksand. He looked like he knew what guy he was covering. It looked like an off-match coverage, and he just got beat for a long one. But, it's unfortunate. It's a sad way to end the season. Obviously, I'm talking about the defense here because I bring a defensive perspective. Obviously, we're all a little more miffed at the offense than the defense.
Yeah.
I mean, watching this offense all season, it was like watching a slow train. Like you're in a nightmare. You're standing on the train tracks, and a slow train is inching towards you, and you never escape the tracks. There are so many opportunities this season for them to reevaluate what they were doing and make some changes, and they just didn't make enough of them. And they very much underperformed against what is not a good 49ers defense at the moment. But back to the defensive side, one other thing that's been a problem all year. Yes, it's a minor problem, but it became a problem, I think, on San Fran's scoring drive late in the game. I think it was their touchdown drive. Byron Young, felt all season that he was, he had a good preseason, and I commend the work he put in. I commend the work that the Eagles put in with him, because I felt like a year ago he was on his way out of the league. He put in some work, they put in some work, and they made him a playable guy. But just looking at the way he was getting blown off the ball early in the season when we had an injury with Jalen Carter off and on, I felt that they had to prioritize making a change there at defensive tackle, either giving Ty Robinson a shot or going outside at the trade deadline, or just filtering guys, churning guys through the practice squad. And they did not do that. Lo and behold, we have an injury defensive tackle. Byron Young's on the field for some incredibly important snaps late in the game, which that's questionable to me, but whatever. He goes from defensive 4 to defensive tackle 3 in the event of an injury, and he hurt them on a couple plays as San Fran marched down for that touchdown. So I think that's something that they need to look into in the offseason. I wish, I am grateful that Vic Fangio is here. I think he's one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. I like his scheme a lot. I feel like from a judgment standpoint, sometimes his judgment is a little bit more advanced on the back 7 than it is up front on the defensive line. And I felt like if he went to Howie at some point and said, hey, we got to upgrade DT4, I think Howie probably would have made more of an attempt to do that. But, I'm nipping at the margins a lot.
Yeah.
I am nipping at the margins, whereas, with the offense, it's not the margins that you nip at. It's like an anvil dropped on your head. It's just, they obviously have to make some changes with their leadership there in the offseason.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the things that really swung the needle in the second half, just defensively speaking, because we'll get to the offense. Somebody asked about the positivity right now. Well, we're talking about the defense. It's easier to be positive there. And obviously the defense is putting a lot of holes by the consistent 3-and-outs. But I think one of the big things with the defense in the second half was that the 49ers run game got going. I mean, in the first half, the 49ers played a lot of heavy personnel, just like they always do. And the Eagles mostly chose to match that with nickel defense. And so the 49ers played a lot of 21 personnel with Kyle Juszczyk on the field. They played a lot of 22 personnel. And the Eagles largely just sat in nickel. They only played base defense on 19% of their snaps in the first half. And they were effective stopping the run out of that. I mean, the 49ers in the first half only had 10 carries for 23 yards. Then you go to the second half, and all of a sudden in the second half, and this coincides with Jordan Davis getting banged up and leaving the game, and, people that want to talk about Jordan Davis, it shows the impact he has in the run game and how he can change things, because in the second half, they get the run game going. The Eagles go into base 53% of the snaps, so up from 19% in the first half. And the 49ers were still just able to run the ball effectively. 15 carries, 52 yards. And I think that's a big story. And, I'm sure there's an element of the defense wearing down. There's a span where the Eagles go 3-and-out, 5 possessions in a row, and that doesn't do your defense any favors in terms of rest and maintaining that energy. But that was one of the big things for me. Early in the game, the 49ers run game did not work, and it severely limited the impact of their play-action passing game. And then in the second half, it suddenly got going. And I posted this on Twitter. It's just funny. Like, the defense has been great, and I'm not trying to take a shot at the defense here. They've consistently been put in awful situations by the offense, but it seems like every time the offense finally gets a score, the defense has been in the trenches, hanging on by the skin of their teeth for the entire game while the offense does nothing. And then the offense will finally get a score late in the game to take a lead, and the defense promptly gives up a drive. And we saw that in this game too. The defense gets the interception, the Eagles kick a field goal to take the lead, and the defense promptly gives up a 10-play, 66-yard touchdown drive. And it's just, they did the same thing too after the field goal to close the third quarter. Like, both times we were trading field goals for touchdowns in the second half, and you just can't win doing that. And so it's really disappointing. Like you said, I feel good about the defense in terms of them moving into the future. A lot of good players on the defense. I've got all the confidence in the world in Vic Fangio. And I think your assumption is right too, by the way, about how they chose to play. So I'm looking at the Sumer Live tracking data, which this has just been unveiled. So
No, okay. I don't have it. I
Okay.
don't have access to any numbers. I'm just going by what I saw on the screen.
Yeah, I just pulled it up. It's a new thing they just rolled out for the playoffs where they live chart plays. So it's obviously new, and that makes it hard to verify how good it is. But they show that the Eagles' primary coverage was cover 3, and they actually played more cover 1 than they played quarters in this game. So a lot of single high coverage, which I guess makes sense. If you're going to play nickel against heavy personnel, you're probably going to get into single high a little bit more, and that seems to be the road that they chose. So
yeah, the cover one I could kind of see from a game plan standpoint in order to get in the matchups you need, since they have these unusual matchups of wide receiver and tight end. But the 3-match, being that heavy into 3-match, I was on the whiteboard. I wanted to delve more into this game, into San Fran, and I just found myself stuck on the whiteboard trying to figure out how to make 3-match work against this offensive coach with 100, and these receivers, and it wasn't working a lot of the time. So I can understand why Vic chose to go into some man. I wouldn't be surprised if in the second half, when Vic started to send some pressures, that did help, by the way, if they played some man behind it as well. But yeah, the 3-match was too much. And if you're going to play 3-match and you're not going to double team, we got a $17 million a year linebacker. Why isn't he covering him? On that touchdown at the end, you can't have Nakobe Dean. I love Nakobe.
Yeah.
But you can't, all these players have strengths and weaknesses. It's not just about, out-coaching somebody on the whiteboard. You got to translate the whiteboard to the strengths and weaknesses of your players. And having Nakobe Dean one-on-one against CMC in the low red zone there, that's kind of like high levels of unacceptable for me as a fan and as somebody who has an appreciation for the X's and O's and defensive game planning. I think about it all the time. So that was upsetting for me. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, that's another matchup I kind of talked about during the week, is Christian McCaffrey is their leading receiver this year. And part of the problem when you're going to live in this match coverage world, which is great, and I want you to live in the match coverage world, but part of the problem with that is it's going to allow teams to isolate a running back on a linebacker, and in what is essentially man coverage. And I worried about that with Nakobe Dean. I thought that they would blitz a lot more than they did, just to try to take advantage of that strength of Nakobe Dean's and maybe force Christian McCaffrey to stay in to block. And
agree.
That didn't really happen a lot. I mean, Nakobe Dean had 5 pass rush attempts. On the 5, he had 1 pressure. It's fine, but the Eagles' blitz rate was lower actually than their regular season total at 22%. So they didn't do it as much as I thought they would. I wonder if that's something Vic wishes he had back, that he would maybe try a little differently. But yeah. Anything else you want to shout out on the defense? Oh, well, I want to shout out one on the defense. Quinyon Mitchell. My favorite thing about Quinyon Mitchell is his total inability to catch the ball in the regular season, and then he just becomes a ball hawk in the playoffs. He has 0 interceptions in 32 career regular season games, and he has 4 interceptions in 5 career postseason games. So shout out Quinyon Mitchell. Had a rough start to this game. Gave up, I think it was 74 yards or 70 yards. He gave up like 70 yards or something on the first drive, and he didn't give up a completion the rest of the game, I think is what I saw. Yeah. So way to bounce back on that one. Anything else you want to mention defensively, and then we'll throw it over to the offense?
One of the issues that Vic has faced this year, he played a condensed front last season a lot, a handful of snaps every game, and allowed him to stay in the nickel while being stronger against the run. And teams seem to figure out how to defeat that a little bit and get into 3-by-1 formation. And I was hoping he would adjust his defense more to get to be able to stay in these condensed fronts. Instead, he just kind of went away from them this season. You would see like 1 or 2 a game lately. It would stuff the run for like a play, and then he'd get right back out of it again. He was I wish that, it would have been challenging because this is not his primary defensive scheme. He's either a 5-2 front, or he's, with a 5-2 odd front, or the 4-2-5 over G front with the 2-eye, 3-tech, and 2 wide 9s. That's usually what he's in. But I felt like that condensed front was so crucial to his 2024 season that I felt like once it got exposed early in the season by Sean McVay, instead of running away from it, I wish that Vic could have found a way to either make a position switch or make some schematic changes to be able to stay in that more, especially if you lose, Jalen Carter or Jordan Davis against a legitimate opponent. you might need to toughen up a little bit more inside. And that is one way to close off the A's and B gaps. And it's unfortunate that the league has kind of figured out those fronts a little bit. And Vic needs to go back to the drawing board in the offseason. If you guys might recall the legend of Vic, I can't remember what season it was, 2018 maybe? I don't know. He went with these 6-man fronts, and it was like 2 eyes, 2 5-techs, 2 overhangs, and just a lone linebacker in the middle, and thwarted the Rams' running game. Bill Belichick then copied that in the Super Bowl, and he was able to win a low-scoring Super Bowl as a result. And, obviously those fronts were still working for Vic last year. The league kind of figured them out this year, and I hope that Vic goes back to the drawing board and gets them to work again. I also would like to see, and I'm in the minority on this, I might upset a few people, I would like to see Cooper DeJean's versatility utilized more. I mean, if there was a game where you could use him some at safety instead of nickel, which we all know he could do. I mean, Vic Fangio was beaming. The non-verbal communication was off the charts when he talked about how good Cooper DeJean looked at safety in the offseason in training camp. And to go into base defense and take DeJean out of the middle of the defense and out to cornerback, it's just a mistaken judgment. And I hope they utilize his versatility more next season. I hope in base he goes to safety instead of outside corner. Yeah. So I'm done complaining about the defense. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, fair enough. I wonder if part of that is he's so key as the nickel, especially when you're trying to play nickel to heavy personnel. But that is an interesting thought about moving him to safety and base, especially if you end up getting a CB2 that you feel more comfortable with going into next season. So something
from
to
a
keep an eye on.
matchup if he wanted to play a lot of 3-match, the only way he's going to do it against this team is to move DeJean to safety because he doesn't have a coverage safety anymore. Makuba's gone. So, he had to play more too high. Yeah, I'm beating a dead horse now. Thank you for listening.
All right. Well, let's flip it over to the offense. That's what the people want to hear us complain about.
Jesus.
So just some context for you guys offensively. Of course, I have the tweet back in October after they lost the first Giants game, early October, saying that the season was probably over if they don't fire Kevin Patullo over the mini-bye. And they not only didn't do that, they didn't fire him over the bye, and they continued to let him run this offense into the ground. The way that Howie Roseman structures contracts, shout out to Jimbo in the Discord, but he had a whole thing about this a week or two ago. The way the Eagles structure the contracts, you guys are well aware of how they backload contracts and things. Well, if you look at the average annual value of contracts instead of what guys are being paid this year, so it's a good way to just look at how much you're robbing from the future. The average annual value of this offense is only $30 million less than the entire salary cap. And that offense put up less than 18 points per game after the bye, if you exclude the Raiders game. And that's the worst team in the NFL. And I excluded the Week 18 game because that wasn't the starters. So after the bye, excluding one game against the worst team in the NFL, they put up 17.75 points per game. After the bye week, the Eagles offense ranked 25th in the league in EPA per play and 26th in success rate. It is unbelievable that this level of incompetence was allowed to continue all season. And we can talk about the fact that A.J. Brown dropped multiple passes in this game and played terrible. And we can talk about the fact every time the Eagles got something going, there were penalties. All of those things are true, but at the end of the day, the responsibility for all of that falls on coaching staff to put their teams in situations to win the game. And we could talk for an hour about all of the stupid things in this game. In the second half, the Eagles called a run play on a 2nd and 18, a 2nd and 12, a 2nd and 10, a 3rd and 13, a 2nd and 20. There was a sequence where after a penalty, they called a hitch route on 1st and 10, and then they called a 2nd and 20 run play. And then on 3rd and 13, they went empty, which would be great if the QB run game was an option, but that's not an option on 3rd and 13, really. And they ran curl routes to the sticks, and they punted. They ran one play action bootleg the entire game, and Hurts scrambled for a first down and drew a flag, which was an awful flag, but we'll take it. It's the only one the 49ers got all game. They didn't do that again. Jahan Dotson was targeted one time in this game, and it was a go ball on a key situation, like the first time you even target him in the game. They ran no slants to anybody. It was horrible. They had a span going into that last drive. They had 6 consecutive drives that gained a total of 71 yards. This is not detailed. Nick Sirianni's whole thing, tough, detailed, together. It's none of that. Even down to the little things, like you get to 4th and 11. If you call a pass play on 3rd and 11, you should know before you even call that what your 4th and 11 play is, right? If we get an incomplete pass, this is what we're going to call. They don't know. They can't get the play in. They burn a timeout. Now, would it have mattered? Likely not. But what that did is it removed your ability to call 3 quick timeouts. Like, if you don't call a timeout there and you fail to convert with 43 seconds left, you can get the ball back with 30 seconds left. San Francisco's going to run it 3 times, and you're going to call timeouts, and they're going to punt it to the 40-yard line. Like, there's still a chance. You cost yourself that because you mismanaged the game. And so it's egregious all the way around. A lot of the offense's problems stemmed from the fact that they could not run the football, and there's a lot of predictability in that. There's a lot of injury baked into that. Cam Jurgens, Landon Dickerson were bad. Dickerson was more up and down. Jurgens was just bad this season, and both of those guys were injury things related, but you've got to be concerned about that moving forward with Jurgens' neck and back stuff, with Dickerson's injury history coming out of college. And so you're going to have to figure some things out. And I thought the defense gave the offense a tremendously long runway to figure things out. And they just never did. Like, They never were consistent. You would have the under center bootleg game and it would work, and then you wouldn't do it. And you had the empty game against Washington, and you had the RPO game against the Giants, and they just never stacked together into a cohesive offense to the point that they were still, Nick Sirianni is still talking about in the press leading up to this game that they had a chance to like really sit down with everybody and hammer out what their identity is going to be. Brother, it is week 18. You should have known your identity in September. And so that's my offense rant. It's ridiculous.
There's been stuff I've been talking about with the offense since week two, where I'm like, okay, this might have worked in the past. It's not going to work now. You have to be smarter. Instead of being smarter, the offense was more dumb. So not only did they have the injuries on the offensive line, not only has A.J. Brown had a season where, let's be real, He's our wide receiver 2 now. He's not the guy he's been in the past who was all world. He's a good player. But, so granted, they had those things going against them. There's still enough talent on this offense because A.J. Brown is a high-level number 2. Slim, Devontae, pretty darn good wide receiver 1. They had a pretty good tight end. They got a talented quarterback. Their offensive line, despite their injuries, they're kind of an average group. If you look around the league, there's a lot of problems on offensive lines throughout the league. So I do understand that maybe the talent level due to injuries and wear and tear wasn't what the money level was at. I can understand that a little bit. But the coaching has to at least keep that neutral or work better at the margins to raise the level of the performance. Instead, the coaching lowered the level of the performance all year long. Like A.J. Brown, all year long, if there's a lot of air under the ball, all year long, except for like the Vikings game against a linebacker on a half-broken play. All year long, if there's too much air under the ball, he's either not going to track it well or he's not going to make the play on the ball. And I don't think it's a lack of, obviously he's not at 100%. He still has a value out there, but to call those, I think it was like 2 minutes to go in the half. They threw a couple go balls or, downfield balls, a lot of air under it to A.J. Brown. And I was cursing out loud while the ball was in the air because I've seen this story over and over and over for 17 games. Was A.J. Brown going to magically regain his 2024 form before the injuries, his 2023 form, his 2022 form, now in the first playoff game after 17 weeks of him not having it? Those go balls can't be in the offense in that situation. Another failed end of first half scoring opportunity because they don't know their identity. I'm sick of hearing the coach talk about finding his identity. You're the coach. You have the same access to the same videos that I watch every week. I know your identity better than you. Sorry, I'm a fan, obviously, not just an analyst. But yeah, it's a little upsetting. Yeah.
Yeah, and, thank goodness Sirianni decided to run down the sideline and get in A.J. Brown's face and cuss him out before halftime because of a drop, and then they don't throw him the football for the entire second half. Like, you talk about a player.
Was that what happened?
Yeah.
Was it a drop? I just thought he was trying to get AJ off the field because he was so getting off the field.
Well, I don't know. It was after the drop. It was the immediate aftermath of that drop that should have been probably DPI on, I don't forget who the Niners cornerback was. But yeah, it was the back-to-back plays. It was the post route against Quarters that he didn't track very well, and then the drop on third. If you chart it as a drop, I would hit him in the hands. And then Sirianni gets into it with him on the sideline. I don't know exactly what transpired there, but players coach. Like Brady was talking about in the booth, emotions run high on the sideline. Emotions can run high for your players, but as a coach, you can't. I don't know. I'm not going to go down the whole Sirianni thing, but
if he can't call plays, if he can't design offense, if he has almost no value designing an offense or building a team, building the roster. We all know Howie and Vic probably has more influence on it than he does. If he can't even hire his own staff. The majority of the offensive coaching staff, like the bigger names, they were essentially brought in more by the front office than him. Vic Fangio was brought in by the front office. I mean, we all know that they had the hots for Fangio, for years. They wanted him. The wide receiver coach has been here predating Nick Sirianni. The offensive line coach was predating Sirianni. The special teams coach, what used to be in the Eagles organization, they obviously knew him and said to, hey, Nick, when he was getting the head coach job, hey, here's a good special teams guy for you. We like him. He was here before. Nick said, sure, come on in. You know what? I could be a crash test dummy and say, sure, come on in. Oh, yeah, that looks great. And not have any impact and get paid $10 million a year. That'd be wonderful. Somebody sign me up for that. Yeah, I don't get it. And if your whole deal is like emotional intelligence or being the rah-rah guy, if it's true that he gave him a hard time right after a drop like that, knowing AJ's emotions, I got an issue with that. That's not a leader. That's not a coach. So I don't know if that's exactly what happened. So I shouldn't, I just want to clarify that statement.
Yeah, all I see is that he ran down the sideline and got in his face, and they got into it after that play. I mean, could have been about something else, but I'm just going to Occam's razor it and assume that that's what was going on.
As long as Nick Sirianni is the head coach of this team, he cannot be allowed to hire his own guy from within. He has not shown the acumen on the whiteboard to do that. He has not. You have to go from outside the organization, and it has to be one of these guys who's not going to be stolen as a head coach. I know it's not easy to do, but I'm not looking for an all-star offensive coordinator. Give me an average one. Give me just a veteran who knows how to call a play or two. It doesn't have to be somebody that knocks it out of the park, especially with the talent on this offense. Just give me an average one. Somebody maybe considered a little past his prime in the years, who teams might not want to steal as the next hot young thing, and get him in there so we can have the same offensive coordinator for 2-3 years in a row at least, Sorry, that's an end of rant for now. I'm sure I'll find another rant in a few minutes.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think, honestly, the worst thing to come out of this is, if the Eagles were going to lose, I wish they would have just lost, 23-3 or something, and they could have just fired Patullo before they even got to the locker room, because now they're going to be like, we put up 19 points, we scored 2 touchdowns. I don't know. I don't know how they'll try to spin it, but that's got to be the move. So let's go to our MVP picks and our 3-word reactions, and then we'll do some final thoughts here at the end. So you guys drop your 3-word reactions. Some of you already have here in the comments, but I'll throw it to you first. Who do you have for your player of the game pick?
A player of the game, I don't know if I'd call him a player of the game. Am I allowed to choose an offensive player on the other team? Or?
Yeah, sure. It works for me.
Yeah.
I've done it a time or two before after a bad loss.
Man, I got to say, I think it's CMC. Even though he's lost a little bit of explosion and maybe he's not quite the runner he once was, his route running is a work of art, and he did just enough of it to screw with our defense at crucial times throughout the game. So to me, he's, Brock Purdy was very good, but to me, if Brock Purdy doesn't have CMC, you can't pull off scoring 20 points against this much talent on our defense,
Yeah.
So I guess I'd have to go with him.
Yeah.
He's the reason why our 3-match was one of the reasons why, not one of the biggest reasons why our 3-match just wasn't up to snuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, longtime listeners will know my rule is you get an interception, you're my player of the game. And Quinyon Mitchell didn't just get one, he got two. So really rough start to the game for him. Gives up 74 yards and a touchdown on the opening drive, and then he does not give up a catch the rest of the game. And that 74 yards he gave up on the first drive is the third most he's allowed in a season this year. And it was all on the opening drive, and then he buckled down, gets 2 interceptions, keeps the offense alive a little bit in this game. So Quinyon Mitchell gets player of the game for me. Do you have a 3-word reaction that you want to give?
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
Fare thee well. And I think we all know who I'm talking about there. Kevin Patullo, I hope you have a wonderful life. I hope there's no eggs in your future on the outside of your home. I appreciate the time you helped in the background over the past several years as a major assistant with the passing game. I appreciate that you helped Kellen Moore merge, what he wanted to do with some of the things that works here and now. That being said, some guys maybe aren't meant for the next step up. Maybe he learns from this experience and does become a good offensive coordinator down the road, but it's not going to be here. I sure hope not. Jeffrey Lurie, I hope you have that speech already written about what you're going to say to Sirianni in the postseason meetings. But Kevin Patullo cannot be here as an offensive coordinator next year. He's got to either be demoted or gone. So fare thee well, Kevin Patullo.
Yeah. I'll go to a few here from the comments. Philadelphia fan is cheating, but I'll give it to him. He said Kevin James Franklin as one word, Patullo. We've got, let's see, scrolling through here. That one was really early. Oh, Brett Eclipse with a good one here. 1 turnover battle. True, that's the only thing the Eagles care about. Alante said disappointed, not surprised. Mind Catalyst said tough to repeat. Adam said an absolute disgrace. We also got a window still open from Mind Catalyst. BR says higher experienced OC. Thankfully it's over from Shake. Robster echoes that with it's finally over. Fire Nick Sirianni from Mitch. Jack says higher Eagles. Eric, we got several fire Nicks. Kevin Patullo's. We've got a Mike McDaniel, please. Lots of 3 words coming in here, and we're firing people this time around, but that's not uncommon for these 3 reactions after a loss, especially this season. Yeah, I'm just about as expected, I think, would be mine. Yeah. I did pick the Eagles to win this game, and it's because I thought the defense would be able to hold the Niners to 10, 13 points, something like that. But I did say on Birds of the Round Table, the moment the Eagles have to score 21 in the postseason, it's over. And that's about how it worked out. So as Brett Eclipse is pointing out here, maybe we're just cursed to win the Super Bowl every other year. Hey, we have gone Super Bowl, first round playoff exit, Super Bowl, first round playoff exit. So I fully expect the Eagles to be back in the big game next year.
That makes it all better.
Yeah,
there you go.
So. All right, well, that is going to about do it here. I'll throw it over to you first for any final thoughts you have. Plug your stuff, tell the people, where they can find all of your content, and then I'll bring us home.
Final thoughts. Cornerback number 2 has to be addressed and upgraded in the offseason. Defensive tackle and cornerback, outside cornerback specifically in this scheme, a lot of stress is put on those positions in this scheme. Fangio, starting around midseason, started putting Quinyon on the boundary so that they could roll safety help more often over Adori's side or whoever was playing CB2 that week. But as you saw by this game, if you're still going to call single high coverages and you're not going to bracket to help that outside CB2. You got to have a better CB2. And this scheme, a lot of people call this a zone scheme. It's more of a match scheme than a zone scheme. And a lot of vertical routes don't get doubled. They get singled. And as a result, you have to have you don't have to have, but it sure helps a lot in this scheme to have strong off-man outside corners that can backpedal. And I think Howie miscalculated there in the offseason, and I hope that he understands the importance of that position and upgrades CP2 with at least an average level player who is a scheme fit. I also think that, I mentioned earlier that Vic and Howie have to upgrade DD4, as that's the other position that gets a lot of stress in this scheme with their defensive ends playing real wide, puts a lot of stress on those 1.5 defensive tackles to hold down the fort in the middle. Not only upgrade DT4, but I think Vic has to go back to that drawing board and figure out how to get those condensed fronts working again. So those are a lot of my thoughts. Obviously, Kevin Patullo fairly well. And, even though we lost this game, we were outcoached, without looking at the All-22. I already know we were outcoached in this game overall, possibly significantly. And yet we were still in it to the end. So I got to give Howie, even though I just criticized Howie with his, some of his moves, he's obviously made some good moves this offseason for sure. And he has built one heck of a roster. We have a chance. We still may have a Super Bowl window open next year. Let's get an offensive coordinator in here who can get us back to the promised land, especially since it's, we're due because it's every other year now. So there you go.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you guys be sure and go check out Wannabe's stuff. I just want to thank all of you guys for hanging out with us throughout the whole season, from all of the shows, Birds of the Round Table, Chalk Talk. I'm not on Kelly Green Hour, but my film show with Johnny. The games haven't been a lot of fun for a majority of the season, but hanging out with you guys has always been fun. So thankful once again that you guys let us do this. Otherwise,
thank you, everyone.
Yeah, if you guys aren't here, I'm just a guy talking into the void, talking into the ether, whatever you want to say online. So really appreciate you guys. The Eagles season is over. The Eagles Pinpool Network and the Eagles Film Room Patreon are not. There will be continuing content. Mark and I will still be doing Chalk Talk throughout the rest of the postseason, breaking down all of the other playoff games. Birds of the Round Table will continue to be on Tuesday nights. I'm not sure what some of the other shows' plans are. If you enjoy mine and Johnny's film work, come check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Eagles Film Room. In the off season, we will not have weekly shows on the podcast feed because we're probably going to alternate some public shows and some private shows in the Patreon. So come check that out. We've got several different membership tiers. There'll be something that works for you. We'll fully get into what our off-season planning is. Well, I guess after Johnny wakes up and watches this disaster tomorrow. So anyways, tap in for that. There'll still be stuff on Twitter, all of those things, but just really appreciate you guys hanging out. Looking forward to seeing who the Eagles' next OC and potentially head coach is. It'd be interesting to see how that all plays out. But again, truly, thank you guys for joining. Disappointing end to a disappointing season. But like we said earlier, that just means next year is the Super Bowl year. That's going to do it for this one. From me, from Wannabe, from the rest of the Eagles Pinpool Network crew, you guys have a good rest of the evening. Go Birds, and we'll catch you next time.